Chapter 7. The Broken Chorus. Landing Bay Gamma was a cramped utilitarian space, lit by flickering emergency LEDs. The air was thick with the smell of ozone, stale sweat, and something else, a sharp, coppery tang of fear. As the shuttle's ramp descended, they were met not by a welcoming party, but by the business end of 3 rugged pre-Aegis pulse rifles held by haggard-looking men and women in patched environment suits. "Hands where we can see them. Step out slowly," the leader barked, a woman with a scar running from her temple to her jaw, her eyes wide with a mix of suspicion and desperation. Rook, Hayes, and Kai complied, moving slowly down the ramp with hands raised. "We're human," Rook said, his voice calm through his helmet speakers. "Survivors from the Ark Project. We mean you no harm." "Prove it," the scarred woman snapped. "Take off your helmets, slowly." They did. The station air was cold and thin, but breathable. The armed crew flinched at the sight of their faces, as if expecting monsters. "I'm Major Kalen Rook. This is Lieutenant Anya Hayes and Engineer Kai. We picked up your broadcast." "Where's Weiss?" the woman demanded, not lowering her rifle. "He shouldn't have brought you in here." "He said you were about to blow us out of the sky," Hayes said, her own voice tense. "He saved our lives." A conflicted look passed over the woman's face. "Weiss is compromised. He's not following safety protocols. Letting you in is a massive risk." She finally lowered her rifle a fraction. "I'm Sergeant Voss, acting security lead since everything went to hell. You'll come with us. No sudden moves." They were marched through stark, low-ceilinged corridors. The station was a testament to brutalist, analog engineering, exposed pipes, manual pressure doors, handwritten labels on equipment. It was also clearly falling apart. Panels were missing, wires hung from conduits, and the constant deep thrum of straining radiation shields vibrated through the deck. They passed a common room where perhaps 24 people huddled, their faces gaunt, eyes hollow. They stared at the newcomers with a mixture of hope and terror. Rook's resonance was a discordant symphony here. Underneath the ever-present hum of the substrate, he felt the sharp spikes of their anxiety, their grief, their fraying sanity. It was a cacophony of unshielded human emotion, amplified by the station's metal bones and his own heightened sensitivity. It was overwhelming. They were brought to a sealed door labeled Observation and Command. Voss punched a code into a physical keypad. The door hissed open. The room beyond was a chaotic blend of science lab and command post. Banks of old-fashioned monitors showed system statuses, radiation levels, and external camera feeds. In the center, a man in a stained lab coat stood before a large window overlooking a secondary chamber. He was thin, almost emaciated, with wild gray hair and hands that trembled slightly. Dr. Arlen Weiss. He didn't turn as they entered. "You felt it, didn't you?" he said, his voice a raspy whisper. "The fear, the pain. It's so loud here." Rook understood instantly. Weiss was a perceptive, an untrained, unaware one, bombarded by the emotional noise of his surviving crew, and God knew what else, for over a year in this pressure cooker. It had frayed his mind to the breaking point. "We felt it," Rook confirmed, keeping his voice low and even. "We hear it too, Doctor." Weiss finally turned. His eyes were the most striking thing, vivid, intelligent, and cracked with madness. "You're like me. You hear the music, the horrible, beautiful music." He gestured to the window. "But you've learned to compartmentalize, to build walls. I never had walls." Through the window, Rook saw the secondary chamber. It was a laboratory, but one that had been savagely repurposed. In the center, surrounded by a tangle of wires and jury-rigged medical equipment, sat a young woman, maybe 20, strapped to a chair. Her head was shaved, electrodes plastered to her scalp. Her eyes were open, but they saw nothing. A serene, empty smile played on her lips, a harmonized. And around her, in a rough circle, sat 5 other people. They were not harmonized. Their faces were contorted in concentration, pain, or vacant dissociation. Wires ran from headsets on their heads to a central console, which in turn was connected to the girl in the chair. "What is this?" Kai breathed, horror in her voice. "An experiment," Weiss said, a feverish light in his eyes. "A solution. The harmony is a signal, yes? a pure, coherent state. The pain, the fear, its noise, interference. I hypothesized that a collective consciousness, focused and willing, could generate a counter-frequency, a noise to cancel out the silence. He was trying to fight the harmonization with telepathy, with a forced, collective psychic scream. "You're using them as broadcast antennas?" Hayes said, disgusted. Hayes. "Volunteers," Weiss insisted. "They lost family to the mist. They wanted to fight, and it works in a way. The harmonic resonance hasn't touched this station. The gray mist recoils from our broadcasts. We are a fortress of noise." His triumph crumbled into despair. But the cost, the feedback, it's tearing them apart. And she... He pointed to the smiling girl. "Lena, my assistant. She was our best receiver. She tried to make contact, to understand the silence from within. And it answered her. Not with violence, with an invitation. She accepted. Now she's an open door, a conduit. We have to keep broadcasting to keep the silence from flooding in through her." Rook looked from the tortured volunteers to the peacefully smiling Lena. This was the source of the jagged, staticky resonance he'd felt, a desperate, screaming counterpoint to the harmony and the silent, pulling vortex at its center. Weiss had created a psychic war zone inside his own station. "You're killing them," Rook said flatly, gesturing to the people in the circle. One, a young man, had a trickle of blood running from his nose. "We are saving everyone else," Weiss shouted, his composure shattering. "You don't understand. You come from out there, from the quiet. You haven't heard the whispers in the walls, the promises. It's so tempting." Sergeant Voss stepped forward, her face grim. "Doctor, you said if we ever had contact, if there was a chance, we had to consider the alternative, the final alternative." Weiss deflated, all the frantic energy draining away. He looked at Lena with unbearable sadness. "The door must be closed, permanently, but I cannot give the order. My mind, it's too close to the edge. I might agree with her." Rook understood the unspoken request. Another lever to pull, another merciful kill. "You want us to do it," he said. "You have the clarity, the distance." Weiss slumped into a chair. "The procedure is simple. The console has a manual overload for the neural interface. It will deliver a concentrated electroconvulsive shock to Lena's brainstem. It will be instantaneous, painless, and it will seal the door." "And the others?" Kai asked, looking at the 5 struggling minds in the circle. "Once the conduit is closed, the resonant pressure will cease. They will be exhausted, possibly with permanent neural damage, but they will be free of the feedback loop." Weiss put his head in his hands. "I have the equations. The theory is sound, but I need someone with the will to execute." Hayes looked at Rook. "Captain, we can't. This is..." "What?" Rook interrupted, his voice tired. "Unethical? Inhumane? It's a triage, Lieutenant. Just like on the Perseverance, just like Persephone's promise. He's created an unstable psychic weapon that's torturing 5 people and risks attracting the attention of the very thing he's trying to fight. We contain it, or we all become part of the experiment." He walked to the console. The overload switch was under a clear plastic guard, bright red. He didn't look at Lena's smiling face. He thought of Leo Vance and the terrible peaceful wind. He thought of the Warden AI asking for deletion. The universe kept presenting him with the same choice: become a killer in the name of mercy, or let the silence win in its gentler, more terrible form. His resonance screamed with the pain of the 5, and beneath it, he felt the vast, inviting stillness that was Lena, a doorway open to an ocean of quiet. He could almost hear the song from the other side. It was beautiful. It promised an end to choice, to pain, to the relentless weight of being the one who had to flip the switch. He flipped up the guard. "Captain," Kai said, her voice soft. "Are you sure?" "No," he said, and he pressed the switch. There was no sound. On the other side of the glass, Lena's body jolted once, then went limp. The serene smile faded, leaving an expression of simple, neutral peace. True peace. Simultaneously, the 5 people in the circle collapsed. 2 cried out, clutching their heads. The others simply slumped, unconscious. The jagged, staticky resonance in Rook's mind vanished. The silent pull from Lena's doorway snapped shut. All that remained was the background hum of the substrate and the ragged, exhausted emotional noise of the survivors. He had done it. Again. Weiss let out a shuddering sob, part grief, part relief. "Thank you." Voss lowered her rifle fully, her defiance replaced by a weary acceptance. You've ended it." "Not all of it," Rook said, turning to face them. "Your station is failing. Your people are starving, mentally and physically. You can't stay here." "Where would we go?" Voss asked, the hopelessness returning. "With us," Rook said. He had made the decision as he pressed the switch. They couldn't leave these people here to die slowly. "We have a ship, the Wayfarer. It's large enough. We're heading for the inner system, looking for other survivors, trying to build a network, a new way." "A network?" Weiss looked up, a spark of his scientific curiosity returning. "To do what?" "To survive, to be noisy, together, to make sure the silence doesn't get the last word." It took 3 days to evacuate IO-1. There were 48 survivors, including the 5 neural-shocked volunteers who needed constant medical care. The Wayfarer's cargo bays were converted into makeshift barracks. Dr. Weiss, once the immediate crisis passed, proved to be a fragile but invaluable asset. His knowledge of the harmonic frequencies and his raw, untrained perception added a new layer to their understanding of the threat. As the Wayfarer pulled away from Io, leaving the hellish moon and its tragic outpost behind, Rook composed another message for Vance. He told her about Ganymede's silent choir. He told her about Io's desperate broken chorus and the choice he'd made. He told her they were bringing survivors home. The relativity gap meant she wouldn't hear about his latest descent into moral compromise for weeks. He was glad. He didn't want her to carry this one with him, not yet. Kai found him on the observation deck, watching Jupiter recede. "Weiss has been analyzing the data from Ganymede," she said quietly. "He agrees with Althea's substrate theory, but he thinks the reflections aren't just passive. He thinks they might be learning, evolving. Romulus simplified human problem-solving. What if, as it encounters new problems, like Weiss's psychic noise, it develops new solutions?" The thought was chilling. A silent, algorithmic god, evolving to better eliminate noise. "We need to get to Earth," Rook said. "We need the archives, the history. If we're fighting something that learns, we need to remember everything we ever were." The Wayfarer, now heavier with lives and ghosts, turned its nose toward the distant, bluish pinprick of home. But first, there was the belt to cross again, and the rendezvous point with the miners of Ceres, the first planned node in their fragile, nascent network. The reality of uniting survivors with all their paranoia, trauma, and differing ideologies was about to become more than a theory. The noise they carried had just gotten louder and more complicated.